Hello, folks in the San Juans. I'm Jeff Nodell. Haven't seen you for a little while. Nice to see you. And today we have a great guest. This is the Honorable State Representative from the 40th District, Debra Lekanoff. Am I saying your name right?
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, Lekanoff. And this is 3 days before Thanksgiving. And I have been hoping for a few weeks to talk to you. Thank Devin for setting this up. Thank you, Devin. I wanted to ask you, I guess in late October, President Biden went, I believe, to Arizona to apologize. And it was the first time a US president has ever apologized for Native American boarding schools, a policy of 150 years. I didn't know it was that spanned that long of a time. I think it ended in 1969. So it was like 1829 to 69, 1969, something like that. And interestingly, the Canadian Prime Minister apologized, I believe, in 2008 for similar things. So what was your reaction? Did you see that coming? Did you expect the president to do that?
You know, I'll pause and just properly introduce myself as well. And then thank you for that good question. It really is heartfelt for me. My Tlingit name is Hikchisi. I come from the homelands of Southeast Alaska, where my grandmother's bloodlines have been there since time immemorial. My father is Aleut from the Pribilof Islands. So I'm part Tlingit and part Aleut, but I follow in our cultural perspectives and traditional laws, my bloodline from my mother's side, very much matriarch society. Thank you for the question on, how did I expect and how did I react to President Biden's apology to the first people of this great nation? I want to thank President Biden for the acknowledgement that he brought forth, as it takes a leader to acknowledge a mistake. And in my view, having that done on the homelands of the Gila River tribe and having Chairman Lewis stand before us, one of the most respected leaders around the nation, and bring many other leaders, such as our own Colville Tribal Chairman, Jared Erickson, a young man who walks the pathway with Milton Askett, one of the longest standing tribal leaders in Washington State. To have them witness this opportunity was really incredible for us in the nation. But whereas I could thank President Biden for what he did and Vice Chair Harris of acknowledging and apologizing, I really want to give heartfelt appreciation to our Department of Interior Secretary and the first Native American woman to serve in our Congress, Deb Haaland, my friend Deb. We ran together in 2018. Much of the work we've seen across this great nation coming and stemming from our congressional families comes from the good heart of Deb Haaland and how she has led the many people in Congress to do the right thing. And I think President Biden leaned down and he listened to that voice of reason that she brought. The heartfelt apology that he provided in 2024 was similar to the heartfelt apology that was done in 2008 by our Prime Minister from Canada. I have to tell you, Jeff, I was sitting in the Tawasin Longhouse of the Joe Matheson building with First Nation elders who brought out the regalia that they were told to bury and burn, as they were also victims of the boarding schools in Canada. But they came as survivors wearing the old regalias that went back for generations, and they wore it with pride. And to sit with my First Nations brothers and sisters was empowering for me, but it also set the foundation of sitting with my brothers and sisters in the United States as we heard the apology from President Biden. Two worlds I was had the honor of being part of, both in Canada and both in the United States. But I'll be really honest with you, the apology is the first step. One man gave the apology. It is up to Congress and state legislators and tribal governments to uphold our responsibility to take action and implement the healing, the recovery, and the ongoing building of what the impacts have been to thousands of people's lives. But we can do it better together as all governing bodies. So that's my views of that powerful moment.
And what would your message be to American citizens, non-Native American citizens, as a response? Our president, led us there. It certainly doesn't stop there, as you just said. What would be an appropriate response by American citizens?
In this time, we're going to see more people come together. We're going to be stronger. We're going to stand one another. We're going to uphold one another as citizens, right? In this great nation, this nation came together on the hopes and dreams of people from around the world. We are a mixture of bloodlines throughout the United States. And that's what I think is so important for us here to remember, that we are humans. Rather than asking a Native American, what could we do better? And how could we better understand and heal and apologize for the history? To my message to everybody of all color, of all bloodlines that call our great nation home, that first was our home as Native Americans, is to be human. You know how to be human and to be kind and to be considerate and to be compassionate. Uplift one another, because we are stronger together as a nation when we work together and we collaborate together, but more honestly, we respect one another of whose lands we walk on. I heard a quote from Squamish Nation up in British Columbia from the great Grand Chief Gibby Jacob. And he said, Debra, every step people take, they're walking on top of our ancestors, our spirits, our Indian names, our songs, our traditions and values. And if we can help them understand that, we're just building a better place for them as well.
When you hear more and more people and more meetings in Washington State, starting with a credit to the fact that we're walking on Native American lands, is that just a pro forma thing, or does that touch you? Does that mean something to you?
My bloodlines come from the most beautiful place in the world in Yakutat. I have to tell you, Jeff, every decision I make, it's instilled in me to make sure that I think about the ancestors before me who cleared this pathway for me to walk with them. And I have to remember that I have one hand behind me to lead the next generation. So my way of thinking, of decision-making, of rationalization is because I was built and instilled to think this way, to breathe this way, and to make decisions in this way. And it isn't just a tagline. It isn't a social media post. It isn't opening talking points to anyone that I meet. It's who I am. And I hope that in my 40th legislative districts in the beautiful homelands of the San Juan Islands, Whatcom County, Skagit County, that those who live there will take pause during this time of transition and be thankful of the homelands that we are walking on together, the homelands that take care of us, and that remember that everybody who calls this beautiful place home has a responsibility to one another, to the environment, to the resources, and to the economy. We're only stronger together.
When you're in Olympia working with your colleagues in the General Assembly, is there sincere interest? Do you feel support for Native American issues in the legislature?
I have to give honor to the late Senator John McCoy, who was the Tulalip member. He is one of the longest standing leaders in 20 years who taught me, as I was coming in and working governmental affairs for 25 years for the Washington tribes. And as I came into my legislative role, he taught me that now more than ever, Debra, we have to uphold our responsibility and our traditional values and teachings, to work with our colleagues in the state legislature, to share information, to answer the questions, to teach them the words. We are upheld to the responsibility to represent every Washingtonian But within our bloodlines, we also uphold the responsibility to our Native Americans. And my state legislative colleagues, whether they're Democrat, Republican, whether they're Senate or House, my executive branch, my friends there, and my colleagues, my judicial branch, my friends and colleagues, my local government are all, in my view, as I come into my 7th year in my 4th term, wanting to be inclusive, wanting to respect the sovereignty, and wanting to understand how do all governing bodies better collaborate so everybody who calls this great state home is lifting together and giving together. And my colleagues have done an amazing job, whether it was Frank Chop, who was the longest standing speaker in the United States. I don't know, Jeff, if you knew this. He was elected for 20 consecutive years to serve as a Croatian man in the speaker's position by his colleagues, right? Not for any other reason, but because Frank did a good job. But what's interesting in history is he is the longest standing speaker to be elected consecutively
Did not know that.
in the nation. That is an incredible leadership. On my little bit of history on my tribal side, and this leads a little bit into it, Jeff. Jamestown tribe, Ron Allen has served, I believe, 47 consecutive years as a tribal chairman of his tribe, and is the longest standing tribal chair of 577 tribes to be elected consecutively every year. So as I look towards my own 7 years, right, in serving the state legislature, my 4th term, I've got a long way to go. And these two men are mentors of mine that I admire and I respect deeply. But they have something there that has stayed with me, and that is they hear the people. They listen to the people, and they can strategize years ahead and remember years back, not to make the same mistakes twice, but to grow us together. If it hadn't been for Frank Chop really looking to diversify who the people look like on the floor of the people's house, many of us would not be there today. So I have a great admiration for both of these men.
Well, we're going to wind up on one last question, just because we're in the week that we are, which is Thanksgiving week. And I understand that it can be a very controversial holiday within tribes, within Native nations, but I'll ask it anyway, because we agreed, we saw this coming. Interpret for us, or just share with us what Thanksgiving means to Native Americans. And not, again, I understand it can be very contentious and people can have very, very strong feelings, but it's not just another day, is it?
No, it's not just another day. You know, I grew up in a very small town where community and people and giving was all part of how we survived with this wonderful place in Yakutat. And when I came down to the lower 48, I hadn't realized how hard it was to be Native American, how much patience you had to have for how you were treated. I didn't realize that racism thrived and it lived and it fed off of the hatred of others and the treatment of others. Thanksgiving today and how the United States views it is much different than what Thanksgiving was viewed 20 years ago, right, Jeff? 10 years ago. You know, we don't talk about the history 20 years ago of what Native Americans faced, of being scalped, of being killed, of being murdered from their land, of their children being taken away and being put in boarding schools, of the detrimental races and genocide that was so embedded in United States history. But the difference today is we are not afraid to talk about it. President Biden isn't afraid to say, I'm sorry. We can elect Deb Haaland to the world of, and the platform of the People's House in Congress. You can elect Debra Lekanoff, you know, one of the longest standing Native Americans who've worked in politics at all governing bodies. You can elect Chris Stearns, Claudia Kaufman. You can elect people of color into elected positions that actually represents the demographics of today. So you asked me during this contentious time or during this contentious topic, during a time of Thanksgiving, do I celebrate Thanksgiving in the same context of where it was 20 years ago? And I say no. I say this month of Native American Heritage Month is a reflection of who we are as Washingtonians and who we are as the United States of America, to not be afraid to say I'm sorry, to not be afraid to invest in healing, to not be afraid to invest and say we the people. This is our time now more than ever for the next 48 to 4 to 8 to 12 years, that we as a community, we as a state, we as a nation acknowledge that this day of Thanksgiving wasn't what it was then, but you as a human know how, no matter what color you are, where your bloodlines lie, to be thankful for who you are, where you come from, those who cleared the pathway for you, and be thankful that we have generations of children who will be taught in school the real history and not be afraid of it, but sustain how we move forward in one platform as one nation. And that's what I say Thanksgiving. I won't be eating turkey. I will be eating fresh king salmon from the Alaska Yakutat waters. I will be eating seafood, prawns, crab, and the rich foods that have created my food system of why I look like the way I am and why I sound like the way I am. And that's what I'll be thankful for.
Well, I'm thankful for you. One of the great privileges of this thing I do with San Juans Today is I get to meet people like you. So unfortunately, we're 500 miles apart right now, but I feel like I know you much better. Thank you for your honesty and your openness and your optimism and your great spirit. So I'm thankful for you this week.
Thank you so much. You be safe out there.
I will. And hopefully we will be able to catch up with you in January and hear how I might even be going down to Olympia. But I'd like to hear what your priorities are in the upcoming session and how things are going. It's a very, very important year, isn't it? With the financial challenges.
It's one of the most important sessions I think I'm going to face in my fourth term. I sit on the House Appropriations, House Rules. I am asking to be part of 2 other new committees this year in healthcare, as I think we're going to need healthcare wellness coming, and housing, which is also 2 big issues that are important to my district and my community, and I'll always be fighting for the salmon.
That's Debra Lekanoff, one of our 2 state representatives in the 40th district. Thank you so much. And thank you, folks in San Juan Islands. We'll see you soon.